Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents On the Threshold of Hope, Opening the Door to Healing for Survivors of Sexual Abuse, by Diane Mandt Langberg, Ph.D. Narrated by Nan Mcnamara. Introduction. This is the second book I have written about sexual abuse. The first one, Counseling Survivors of Sexual Abuse, was written from the perspective of the therapist's chair. I dealt with what it is like to sit in that chair and what I think therapists need to be and do as they listen to survivors. This book is written for those who sit in the client's chair. I have listened to survivors in the chair across from me for 25 years now, and I have included in this book many of the things they have said and felt and asked. For the most part, my work as a counselor has been with adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. That means I see adult men and women who were sexually abused before the age of 18. I have seen more women than men, although I find more men coming for counseling in recent years. Some of you who will read this book were raped or sexually abused as adults. You may have been raped by a stranger or by someone you know and love. While this book is not specifically about rape, I believe it will offer you hope and healing, because there is much common ground between your experience and the experience of the other survivors who will speak in this book. You will see many similarities in the descriptions of the experience, the damage done to you, and what healing needs to look like. No matter what your experience of abuse has been, not all of this book will be applicable to all of you. However, it is my hope that as you read, you will feel heard, cared for, understood, and taught. Most important, I long for each of you to find hope within this book. I know with certainty that there is hope for the darkest of stories because the light of the world has come. His name is Jesus, and he brings life to dead places, forgives sins, and heals the broken and wounded. I pray that you will find him in this book. Lightning struck, hit, destroyed, blackened, to nothingness. Nerves, receptors, neurons, the cells, the transmitters, the receptors of feelings, of life. So that a part of me, parts, died, were left blackened, ashes. And now, quietly, softly, gently, persisting, steady, continuous, quietly, I perceive you working. Sometimes, quietly, I come upon you working, slowly, steadily, at the things inside, at the darkness, death, black destruction wrought inside when the fire coursed through my innards, when the darkness passed through my veins. So there he is, quietly, persistently, inside, fixing the tendrils, receptors, neurons, nerve endings, connecting life, cells again, tending and attaching receptors, countering, gentling, tending, remaking the path of life, coursing, that had once been destroyed. Sometimes, rounding a corner, I come upon him, quietly working. And he is always, steadily, there. Quietly, reconnecting. Saraskal, January 29th, 1994. The Lord is good to those who hope in him. Part 1. Approaching the subject of sexual abuse. Most people approach traumatic subjects with mixed feelings. I suspect many of you are ambivalent about reading a book about sexual abuse. I understand that feeling. Part 1 will help orient you to the topic of sexual abuse, as well as to this particular book. I believe you will find that this section will also instill hope. This book is not meant to overwhelm you with the sin and suffering of sexual abuse. Rather, in the midst of that sin and suffering, I pray that the book instills hope for healing and transformation, because we know that the Redeemer has come. 1. Getting started. The subject of sexual abuse is a difficult one. Most people do not want to think about it or read about it unless they have some compelling reason to do so. You have just picked up a book about the subject, so I assume something has driven you to look at it. It is likely that either you have experienced sexual abuse or you are close to someone who has. This book has been written for those who have been sexually abused. To a lesser degree, it is also for those who have chosen to walk alongside survivors as they struggle to deal with their history. I have been immersed in the topic of sexual abuse for over 20 years as a therapist. Hundreds of men and women have courageously sat across from me, struggling to find the words to tell me what they often have never spoken aloud before. They have come seeking hope and healing. They have brought me their questions, their pain, their rage, and their fear. The exchange of such things for hope and healing is never an easy one. It is often a hard and costly labor. It is, however, an exchange that will bring life to those who will persevere. I hope this book will encourage you in your own battle with darkness, give you hope that the light giver has come, and introduce you to a greater measure of his redemptive power in your life. You will find a chorus of voices. First, of course, will be mine. My voice is the voice of one who has listened hard for many years. It is the voice of one whose heart cares deeply about the ravages caused by the evil of sexual abuse. It is the voice of one who knows something of the lies abuse instills, and who wants to use this book to tell you the truth over and over. It is also the voice of one who knows the Redeemer, and who has been privileged to have what I call a front-row seat to his work of redemption in the lives of so many. The second voice you will hear often is the voice of survivors. Elie Wiesel, survivor of the Holocaust, has said that one who was not there can never truly understand it. I was not there, and I acknowledge that I do not know from experience what it is like to be abused. I have been there only as a witness to the testimony of others. But they have been there, and I believe it is important to let you hear their voices. This book, then, provides a place where survivors can speak for themselves. These are men and women I have known and loved. They are men and women who have my utmost respect. You will find that many of them will help you find words for the unspeakable. They will also give you hope, real hope. They know the depth of the darkness. They have felt the fear. To varying degrees, they have seen the light dawn. Listen to them. They know the way. If you are a survivor, the third voice I think you will hear will be your own. The sound of your own voice may initially seem strange to you, because sexual abuse often has the effect of silencing its victims. I hope that as you read this book, you will find help expressing what you have not had words for, and that as a result, your own voice will be added to those that are included in this book. The fourth voice you will hear is the voice of the Redeemer. Some of you are afraid he does not exist, at least not for you. Some of you do not want to know him yet. To trust anyone, perhaps most especially a powerful Redeemer, is unimaginable to you. Some of you long to hear his voice and are desperate to know that he speaks to you. He who is called the Man of Sorrows is here, and he is working even in your darkness. Whether or not you know him, whether or not you believe in him, God, through Jesus Christ, is the one who brings light out of darkness, hope instead of despair. He is the one who can rebuild the ancient ruins, raise up the former devastations, and repair the desolations of many generations. Isaiah chapter 61, verse 4, from the New American Standard Bible. Whatever your story is, There is no darkness he cannot banish, no depth he cannot plumb, no devastation he cannot redeem. I know, for I have seen him do it. As you interact with this chorus of voices, I hope that you will come to know that you are not alone, that others have to some degree walked where you walk. I hope that you will feel understood and that you will sense that there are others who have a grasp on where you have been and what might lie ahead. This book is intended to assure you that the darkness and suffering you have experienced are indeed real. It is also meant to assure you that there is a way out of the darkness, that others have gone before you and now want to lend their voices to encourage you. It is my prayer that this book will enable you to see yourself on the threshold of hope. 2. On the Threshold. Let me tell you a story. It is a horrific story, but then most stories about abuse are like that. It is also a true story. The one thing about it that might surprise you is that it is a story found in the Bible. Most survivors, I find, do not think that Scripture has much to say about abuse. In fact, many survivors have had their abusers use Scripture to justify the abuse. Many survivors are surprised at how well this story captures their experience. The story takes place among the Israelites, after Joshua died and before the Israelites had their own kings. Periodically, the Israelites were ruled by judges, but between the time one judge died and another was appointed, no one was in charge. The result was chaos and lawlessness. It was during one of those chaotic periods that this story occurs. See Judges chapter 19 from the Living Bible. The story also happens within the borders of the tribe of Benjamin. This is the tribe Moses blessed by saying in Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 12, "Let the beloved of the Lord rest secure in him, for he shields him all day long, and the one the Lord loves rests between his shoulders." Ironically, the abuse occurred within the tribe that was to experience the security and refuge found in God himself. Like the abuse that happens in many families, these events happened in what ought to have been the place of greatest safety. The place that should have offered safety and security was instead a place of abuse and death. A Levite, a man of the priestly tribe, took a concubine. That simply means that he lived with a woman without marrying her. She, in essence, had all the duties of a wife, but none of the privileges. At one point, this woman was in some way unfaithful to the Levite, got angry, left him, and returned to her father's house. 4 months later, the Levite decided to go to the woman's house and take her back with him to his house. After staying at the father's house for several days, the Levite decided that he and the woman needed to get back on the road. They left the father's house fairly late in the day, traveling only as far as the town of Jebus before it began to grow dark. The unprotected countryside was dangerous at night, and the Levite did not want to stay in Jebus because he would not feel safe in a town where no Israelites lived. The Levite and the concubine pressed on until they reached the nearest Benjamite town, Gibeah. They sat in the town square for some time before an old man offered them shelter. After the old man had fed the travelers, some men of the city came pounding on the old man's door, demanding to have sex with the Levite. The old man felt that it would be wrong to give over his guest, the Levite, to these men. So the old man suggested that the men take his own virgin daughter and the Levite's concubine instead. When the men would not stop their clamoring, the Levite himself finally pushed his concubine out the door. The men from the tribe of Benjamin raped and abused her all night long. At dawn, when the men let the concubine go, she dragged herself back to the house where the Levite was and fell down at the door. Sometime during those early morning hours, she died, lying at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. When the Levite opened the door of the house and found her lying there, he merely said, "Well, come on. Let's get going. What a chilling story. I am certain many of you can identify with some or all of its components. Some of you know what it is like to be abused in the place that should have been a demonstration of the safety and refuge found in God. You know what it means to have those who ought to have protected you instead hand you over in order to save themselves. The Levite was a member of the tribe set apart to offer sacrifices to God on behalf of the people. Instead, he offered up this woman as a sacrifice for himself. Many of you know literally what it is like to be gang-raped and abused all night long. You know what it feels like to think that night will never end, that morning will never come. Others know what it is like to drag a beaten and battered body somewhere, hoping against hope to find safety and care. You know also the moment of realizing that no one is going to come to your aid. Others of you have heard the door open and heard the response, "Well, come on, let's get going," or "Put the past behind you." Many of you, I am sure, have experienced a death on the threshold. Your hope has died. Any sense of being loved or safe has died. And although your body has not physically died, you may feel as if you have died on the inside. I long for this book and the voices it contains to change the picture on the threshold. It is my desire that you who hang on, dead inside, will hear the sound of the door being opened. The voices at the door will not say, "Let's get going." Instead, they will say, "Let me help. There is hope, I know. I have been on that threshold." The survivors whose voices you will hear in this book know that you cannot get up. They know what it is like to be dying on the threshold. It is my prayer that the understanding and the comfort you will hear will begin to transform the threshold of death into the threshold of hope. 3. How to care for yourself as you read. If you have been sexually abused, reading this book will both draw you and repel you. You will be drawn because somewhere hope may stir in some hidden corner. Perhaps someone understands. Maybe there is help. Maybe there is a way out of the pit. You will be repelled because you are afraid, because hope is dangerous. It has been crushed so many times that you dare not let the flame be sparked yet again. And the thought of reading about sexual abuse is terrifying. You use tremendous amounts of energy to try to forget, keep it away, pretend it did not happen. Any discussion about the topic will easily destroy your fragile defenses against memories you long to leave behind. Knowing this to be so, I would like to make some suggestions about how to read this book. When survivors first come to see me in my office, one of the things we try to establish is how they will care for themselves during the process of counseling. Dealing with a history of abuse can be overwhelming and even destructive if it is not handled carefully. Stories have to be looked at bit by bit. Feelings have to be expressed and managed little by little. Memories can cause confusion and fear and an inability to function if they are not treated with care. Hearing from other survivors and considering your own history as you read this book could easily overwhelm you and make life difficult for you. What are some ways to protect yourself as you read? First of all, do not read at night. So much abuse has occurred under the cover of darkness. Many survivors find it difficult to have any sense of safety at night. To read a book that is likely to trigger memories for you is to work against yourself. So read in the daylight hours, even out in the sunshine, if possible. It will make it easier to remind yourself that that was then and this is now. Second, read only in small bits. The chapters are short in order to help you do that. However, I encourage you to stop at any point when you have a reaction to what you are reading. Abuse silences people. I want to provide you the opportunity to find your voice and exercise it. If you have a feeling, a thought, or a memory in response to what you have read, then put the book down and give yourself the chance to speak and to process. Perhaps it would help you to write your responses in a notebook as you read the book. Third, stop when you have had enough. Many of you know what it means to pay no attention to such signals and to drive yourself to finish or endure no matter what. When you were enduring abuse, you did not have the chance to say, "No, I can't do this," or "Stop," or "This is too much," and be heard. But here you can say those things. If you feel overwhelmed, stop. If you feel afraid, stop and figure out why. Do not push yourself to finish a chapter simply because it is there. In counseling sessions, when a survivor says to me, "Enough," or "Can we talk about something else for a while?" I find it is crucial to help the person do that. You can do that for yourself as you read. Fourth, as I mentioned before, write down your thoughts as you read. Write responses to what you read. Tell your story. Struggle on paper with your feelings, thoughts, and questions. If you are not comfortable writing your thoughts, use a tape recorder and talk out your thoughts and feelings. Again, who you were as well as what you thought and felt were irrelevant to the abuser when you were being abused. That is not so here. Interact, respond, speak. I will make suggestions as we go about how to do that. Fifth, the best way to deal with abuse is in the context of a safe relationship. If possible, find someone who will journey with you as you read. A counselor who has experience in the area of helping survivors would be ideal. A pastor, mentor, or someone who will be trustworthy, safe, and not dictatorial about how you should think or feel could also be helpful. Choose carefully and wisely. If you end up working with someone who knows little about the subject of sexual abuse, then ask the person to read this book and others before you proceed. Sixth, carefully plan constructive ways to care for yourself as you go. Walking or other aerobic exercise is often helpful to survivors when they feel overwhelmed or agitated. Many find great comfort in music. Distraction in the form of movies or light reading, or gardening, or working with your hands can be very beneficial. The goal of this kind of activity is twofold. I do not want you to fall back on destructive coping mechanisms, such as alcohol, drugs, binge eating, or hurting yourself. I also want to help you find ways to keep from reducing your life to the abuse and its pain. As much as possible, you need pockets of time where you are distracted, if not restored. Finally, reading through this book will hurt. You will want to stop. Healing is often a grueling process. You will tell yourself that this is silly, that something that happened so long ago should be no big deal. You will tell yourself you made it up. You will chide yourself to get a grip. You will run from, minimize, deny, and attempt to ignore the abuse and its after effects. You will feel confused, afraid, angry, and sad. And you will be normal. I hold out to you the hope of healing. I know it is a reality because I have seen it occur in many, many lives. I also know it is a hard and often exhausting struggle. Many survivors feel worse before they get better. As you dismantle coping mechanisms that you constructed to manage the abuse, you will feel vulnerable and out of control. But if you persevere, you will see change, although it may take years. Like the nation of Israel, you who have known great darkness will see a great light. It will be small initially, barely a flicker, but those living in the land of the shadow of death will find that a light has dawned. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2. 4. You are a survivor. You will notice in this book that I refer to those who have been victims of sexual abuse as survivors. I've chosen the word deliberately, and the reason for that is crucial to understanding both the impact of sexual abuse and the healing process. Our word survive comes from the Latin word supervivere. It literally means to live above or beyond. To survive means to keep alive against the odds. It suggests the capacity for endurance. A survivor, then, is one who has experienced something extraordinary and yet manages to keep on going. We use the word survivors when we refer to the people who endured the Nazi death camps. We use it when we speak of people who have been through a natural disaster, such as a flood or typhoon. We use the word to describe those who have endured life-changing and life-shattering events. Surely the rape or molestation of a little boy or girl is such an occurrence. The rape and abuse of any human is shattering. Sexual abuse alters people's worlds. When people are sexually abused, their lives are changed, shattered. They will never be the same. A woman who was raped when she was young says, "My comfortable childhood in the suburbs was crushed when I was just 8 years old. One day I was a happy, vibrant, trusting, outgoing third grader, and then the next day I was different. Though I did not understand it fully at the time, my life would never be the same again." Another survivor describes how her life changed because of abuse. "When I was frightened, I would run to my father for safety. I longed for a place of comfort when I was afraid. He would take me on his lap and tell me everything would be okay. But then everything changed. Instead of sheltering me and protecting me from my fear, my father took advantage of my vulnerability and began to use my body for his sexual pleasure. I reached out for help and comfort and found abuse." A third survivor expresses how his world was altered by abuse. "When I was in high school, I worked after school to earn spending money. I loved my job, and I loved my boss. Everyone at the job site trusted and respected this guy, and I found that I wanted to be near him so that I could learn to be like him. He was so different from my dad. But then one day he molested and raped me. I was shattered. How could someone I trusted do this?" It is at moments such as these that one is transformed into a survivor. The person goes from simply living to living against the odds. The person goes from spontaneity to endurance, from carefree to watchful, from trusting to self-protective. People who continue on in unpredictable and unsafe situations, such as chronic sexual abuse, must draw on tremendous reservoirs of courage, endurance, and strength in order to go on. The abuse is particularly life-altering for small children. They do not realize that the abuse becomes the pivotal event in their lives. They have no way of knowing how different their lives would have been if they had not been abused. Many victims of childhood sexual abuse struggle to survive in isolation. Either children tell no one about the abuse for various reasons, or they tell someone and the response is unhelpful or damaging. The result is that these children must develop extraordinary capacities in order to go on. Children who are abused are incredibly resourceful. They draw on deep wells of courage, endurance, creativity, strength, and determination. I have great respect for the survivors I have known over the years. The characteristics they developed to live against the odds will serve them well when they decide to embark on the healing process. What about you? How has your world been altered by the abuse you suffered? What characteristics have developed in you as the result of your struggle to survive? What has kept you going when you wanted to quit? Sexual abuse shapes people's lives. On the one hand, to be a survivor is to rise above the difficulty, to move on in spite of the pain, to defy the odds. On the other hand, it means living a life that has been profoundly affected by an atrocity. You develop certain thinking patterns to live with the abuse. You create coping mechanisms to manage the horror of it all. The abuse shapes you. Abuse results in a life lived in reaction to, in protection against, in defiance of, a horror you would like.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?